Imagine a world where one man's ambition sets an entire continent ablaze. A world where alliances shift like sand and battles determine the fate of nations. This isn't just a story, it's history. Today we delve into one of the most tumultuous times in European history, Napoleon and the War of the Third Coalition. Stay with us as we unravel a tale of ambition, strategy, and a clash that reshaped the world. Our story begins in the early 19th century. Europe is a patchwork of ancient monarchies and budding empires, but one man rises above them all, Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of immense ambition, a military genius whose shadow looms large over Europe. But what happens when such a man challenges the old order? Spoiler alert, it led to one of the most significant conflicts in history, the War of the Third Coalition. Let's take a step back to a critical juncture, the Treaty of Amiens, a fleeting moment of peace in a sea of turmoil. Signed in 1802, it was a rare pause in the relentless rhythm of war. Britain and France, weary of conflict, reached an uneasy truce. But peace, like a delicate vase, is easily shattered. And shatter it did, under the weight of unmet promises and clashing ambitions. Now let's cast our gaze upon the Treaty of Amiens, a pact marked more by its fragility than its resolve. A truce seemingly carved out of good intentions, yet teeming with unresolved issues. Territories and colonies lay at the heart of this simmering discontent. Britain, the undisputed sovereign of the seas, clung tenaciously to strategic jewels like Malta, defying the spirit of the agreement. Across the Channel, Napoleon's France, with ambitions as vast as the empire he envisioned, was extending its influence, embedding its power in the heart of Europe, in places like Italy and Switzerland, and then the inevitable. In 1803, the fragile peace was shattered. Britain, feeling the balance of power tilting dangerously, declared war. It was a preemptive strike, fueled by fears of French dominance. Napoleon, the master strategist, now faced a new and formidable challenge. It wasn't just Britain he had to contend with, but an alliance of powers, each with its agenda and fears. Witness the grand theater of geopolitics as the Third Coalition emerges from the shadows. Imagine a gathering of nations, Britain, Russia, Austria, among others, each drawn to the alliance not by friendship but by a shared necessity. This was not a union of hearts but a pact of survival, a collective stand against a common adversary. The catalyst of their unity? A single towering figure, Napoleon Bonaparte. His boundless ambition was the flame that forged this unlikely alliance. Across the English Channel, Britain stood as the unchallenged ruler of the waves, a maritime colossus whose naval prowess was the envy of the world. Yet, within the corridors of power in London, there was a growing sense of unease. Napoleon's shadow loomed large, not just on the continent, but it threatened to stretch across the seas, encroaching upon Britain's hard-won dominions. Britain's involvement in the Third Coalition was a calculated response, driven by a strategic imperative to maintain its naval supremacy. This was not just about ruling the waves, it was about safeguarding the lifelines of British trade, the arteries that sustained the wealth and power of the empire. Every French move in Europe was seen through the lens of potential threats to British trade routes and colonial interests. For Britain, the war against Napoleon was more than a conflict. It was a crusade to uphold the pillars of its global dominance. The British leadership, under figures like William Pitt the Younger, was acutely aware that allowing Napoleon to extend his influence unchallenged would be a direct affront to British interests. This war was an existential battle, a fight to preserve the balance of power that favored Britain, and to keep the imperial and commercial hegemony that had taken centuries to build. Thus, Britain entered the fray not just as a participant, but as a principal architect of the coalition. Its naval strength, economic resources, and diplomatic prowess were crucial in galvanizing and sustaining the alliance. For Britain, the Third Coalition was a bold stand against a threat that could unravel the very fabric of its empire, a fight for survival in a rapidly changing world where the ambitions of a single man in Paris threatened to upend the established order. Now let's journey to the sprawling empire of Russia, under the rule of Tsar Alexander I. In the eyes of this young Tsar, Napoleon represented more than just a formidable foe. He was an existential threat to the very fabric of the European order. Alexander, with his vision of a Russia both modern and mighty, viewed Napoleon's meteoric rise not just with caution, but with a deep sense of rivalry. Russia's entry into the Third Coalition was fueled by a complex blend of fear and aspiration. On one hand, there was the palpable threat of Napoleon's military genius, his armies that had already redrawn the map of Europe. On the other, there was Alexander's ambition to elevate Russia to the forefront of European powers, to extend its influence beyond the vast steppes and into the heart of the continent. For Alexander, the coalition offered a dual opportunity: to stem the tide of Napoleonic expansion and to showcase Russia's might on the grand stage of international politics. It was about protecting Russian interests, yes, but also about asserting Russia's role as a guardian of the European balance. In joining forces with Britain, Austria, and others, Russia sought not just to contain Napoleon, but to carve out a legacy of its own, to affirm its status as a dominant force in the shaping of Europe's destiny. Thus, Russia's march into the coalition was more than a military maneuver. It was a statement, a declaration of the Tsar's intent to play a decisive role in the future of Europe, in a world where the old order was being challenged by the relentless ambition of Napoleon. In the heart of Europe, the venerable Habsburg Empire of Austria watched warily as the tides of change swept across the continent. The rise of Napoleon and his new order posed a direct challenge to centuries of Habsburg dominion. As an ancient dynasty accustomed to being a central player in European affairs, Austria faced not just a military adversary in France, but a threat to its very status and influence in the European power structure. Austria's decision to join the Third Coalition was underpinned by a mix of defensive strategy and opportunistic ambition. The empire, having suffered territorial losses and diplomatic setbacks in earlier skirmishes with France, saw the coalition as a chance for redemption, a pathway to regain its lost territories and prestige. This was about more than just reclaiming lands. It was about restoring the Habsburg legacy, reasserting Austria's role as a central power in European politics. Led by figures such as Emperor Francis II and the astute foreign minister, Count von Cobenzl, Austria's involvement in the coalition was a calculated move. They sought to capitalize on the collective strength of the alliance to check Napoleon's expansion and to recover regions like northern Italy and parts of Germany, areas that were historically under Habsburg influence. For Austria, this was also about shaping the future political landscape of Europe, a landscape in which they intended to play a leading role. Thus, Austria entered the Third Coalition with a dual purpose: to defend the traditional European order against the revolutionary zeal of Napoleonic France and to seize the opportunity to reverse the setbacks it had endured. In the grand chess game of European politics, Austria moved its pieces with an eye on both the present conflict and the future contours of a continent at a crossroads. And let's not overlook Sweden, a nation often shadowed by its larger neighbors, yet playing its own crucial role in this grand alliance. Under the leadership of Gustav IV Adolf, Sweden saw in Napoleon's ascendancy a destabilizing force in the Baltic region. Sweden's involvement in the Third Coalition was driven by a strategic imperative to safeguard its interests in Northern Europe and to maintain the balance of power in a region increasingly overshadowed by the great powers' maneuverings. For Sweden, joining the coalition was not just a matter of regional security. It was an assertion of its sovereignty and a bid to remain relevant in the high-stakes game of European politics. Each member of this coalition brought with them their fears, ambitions, and geopolitical calculations. Their alliance was a mosaic of interests, a blend of apprehension and opportunism. In the face of Napoleon's expanding empire, these age-old rivals found common ground, bound together by the need to counterbalance a power that threatened to redraw the map of Europe. So here they stood, a formidable assembly, each with their eyes on Napoleon, each with their dreams for the future. The Third Coalition was more than a military alliance. It was a chessboard of power politics, a testament to the extraordinary impact of one man's ambition on the course of history. As the drums of war echoed across Europe, the stage was set for a series of battles that would forever be etched in the annals of military history. The War of the Third Coalition was not just a clash of armies. It was a showcase of tactical genius, bravery, and the raw power of empires. First, let's turn our gaze to the Battle of Ulm. Picture this: the Austrian army, confident and poised, waiting for Napoleon. But the French emperor had other plans. With a blend of audacity and strategic brilliance, Napoleon executed a maneuver that is still studied in military academies today. He encircled the Austrians, cutting off their escape and forcing a surrender that stunned Europe. It was not just a victory, it was a statement of unparalleled military acumen. Then came the Battle of Trafalgar. Off the coast of Spain, the British Royal Navy, under the legendary Admiral Horatio Nelson, faced the combined fleets of France and Spain. In a masterful display of naval warfare, Nelson's fleet decimated the enemy, securing British dominance of the seas. This victory was more than a triumph. It was a symbol of Britain's unyielding command of the waves, a blow to Napoleon's ambitions that reverberated across the oceans. But the crescendo of this symphony of battles was undoubtedly Austerlitz, often hailed as the Battle of the Three Emperors. Here, on a cold December day, Napoleon faced a formidable coalition of Russian and Austrian forces. In a display of strategic genius that still awes historians, Napoleon outmaneuvered, outthought, and outlasted his adversaries. His victory at Austerlitz was not just a demonstration of military prowess, it was a work of art, a ballet of battalions that showcased the emperor at the peak of his powers. The triumph at Austerlitz was a testament to Napoleon's enduring legacy as one of history's greatest military tacticians. These battles, Ulm, Trafalgar, Austerlitz, were more than mere confrontations. They were the turning points of an era, moments when the course of history hinged on the edge of a sword, the blast of a cannon, the command of a general. They were the crucibles in which the fate of nations was forged, and their echoes still resonate in our collective memory. In the wake of these monumental battles, the landscape of Europe was forever altered. The smoke of the battlefields drifted away, revealing a new political terrain. The Treaty of Pressburg, signed in the dimming light of 1805, was not just a document of peace, it was a testament to the shifting sands of power. Austria, wounded and diminished, ceded significant territories, reshaping the Central European map. This treaty was a clear sign of Napoleon's dominance and the frailty of the old order. But perhaps the most seismic consequence of this conflict was the dissolution of a millennia-old institution, the Holy Roman Empire. In 1806, under the weight of Napoleon's victories and influence, this ancient empire crumbled, giving way to the rise of the Confederation of the Rhine under French protection. It was a symbolic end to an era and the dawn of a new age in European history. The War of the Third Coalition, with its dramatic battles and political upheavals, was more than just a chapter in Napoleon's story. It was a turning point in the narrative of Europe. It was a moment when history seemed to hold its breath, a pivot upon which the fate of empires turned. Napoleon's ambitions had reshaped the continent, but the seeds of challenge and resistance were already sowing future conflicts. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most fascinating and transformative periods in European history. If you've been captivated by the tale of ambition, strategy, and the clash of empires, I invite you to like and share this video. Do you have thoughts, insights, or questions about the War of the Third Coalition? Drop a comment below. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the annals of history. We have many more tales to tell, stories of intrigue, valor, and the indomitable human spirit. Until next time, keep the wheels of time turning.